can do that rant after all. Charles was here, but
It's my pleasure.
Now the dreaded YouTube autoplay problem is back.
can do that rant.
Feeling like a pro. Thanks, YouTube. All right. Hello, everyone. I am just waiting for the new quirks in YouTube to do their quirky thing so we can actually start. Let me refresh, pause. Still waiting for the chat to populate so I can say hello in chat because Google fixed things and made it so much better.
I think we can safely say JP broke YouTube because he showed up and YouTube's not working. So, you know, data's data.
Finally, YouTube chat shows up so I can say hello. Boy, I do not like the changes they did for streaming. It is so quirky with the autoplay, and you have to refresh to get chat, and the refresh restarts the default autoplay. So it's like the perfect storm of misery. I'm going to remind people to ask questions, and we'll try to get to those as we go or at the end. Ask early if you want to be sure that we get to it in time, because sometimes we do run out of time. Today we have a guest again, our most regular guest, Charles Taylor. He is an enterprise SEO with the Fox communication network of websites and businesses, including the news arm, is my understanding. And today we're going to talk about the August core update and the helpful content update. And Charles has some enterprise caliber log data that he wants to walk us through to help us with our conversation on these topics. So Charles, let us know, what you're going to do. Tell us about what we're talking about.
Sure. So one of the things I have the privilege of having is enterprise log data. So I get to see things at a level that most of our regular sites don't see. So when these updates start rolling out, I was able to watch the update roll out. It's always fun when you see the stories of, oh, there's some kind of volatility. Well, I can go right into log data and I can see exactly what Google's up to, exactly what the Google bots are up to. And so I kind of want to, kind of keep sharing that with everybody, share that with the industry, so you can see exactly what Google's doing and when it's doing, and hopefully demystify a lot of this. I notice there's a lot of black magic and voodoo around Google updates, and it doesn't really have to be like that.
Yeah, often I find that if you're moving, sharply upwards or sharply downwards with a Google update, that it's an indication that you have gaps in your SEO. Because if you think about it logically, if the update is going to make, backlinks weaker and exact matches stronger, depending which one of those things you're strong in and which one you're weak in will determine if you go sharply up or sharply down. But the volatility itself is an indication that there's a gap in there somewhere. And what we see when you do data-driven SEO and you eliminate your deficits by and large is there's this tendency to just coast through the updates without any volatility. And you kind of forget, for the most part, that Google has updates. You're like, oh, there's an update? I didn't even notice. Because if you have both of them, if you have exact match and backlinks, it doesn't matter which went up and which went down. You got them both covered, so you coast through. So when we see people go sharply up or sharply down, we want you to look for those gaps, because even if you were on the lucky side and went sharply up, what's coming in the next update? You go sharply down. So if you went sharply up on an update, don't feel good. You got holes in there somewhere. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I think that's true. And one of the interesting things, having spent some time with Charles at a couple of conferences and, talking to him just personally, he has access. I mean, it really is cool because, on our sites, if you're looking at logs, you might see this behavior occasionally and say, man, this is a weird thing going on. Well, because the scope of the whole family of Fox sites being as large as it is, and as much time as Googlebot spend on there, anything that happens, that might come to us eventually is already on Charles' site. So he can go and take a look real quick and say things like, hey, you know what, new Googlebot behavior. They visited the Fox logo 20,000 times yesterday. And we're like, why the hell is Google visiting the logo so often? That's weird. That's a new behavior. And then we can anticipate what's coming, what's coming up potentially based on those sort of behaviors. So I always find it, fascinating to get an inside peek at quick, enterprise data, because it is so different than what we're accustomed to dealing with our own sites.
You can also validate stuff. I can validate stuff. So I remember, Ted, I want to say this was like a year ago, you had mentioned how you were looking at one of your sites and Google was hitting the heck out of the RSS feed. And the second I heard that, I said, let me check my log files. And what do you know? Google was hitting the heck out of our RSS feeds, and old RSS feeds. It was getting 400s like crazy. And I was like, all right, there's something I should be doing here. And I found that, yep, it was definitely something that needs to be repaired and fixed, and there's opportunities. One thing I've also noticed looking at this data, I've never seen this in years and years, like maybe you go back 10, 15 years, there were times where you change one small thing on your site and you can benefit or be hurt by it. And that doesn't really seem to happen much anymore. But I've seen it when you start looking at sites in scale, a small demotion, or I'll take a simple example. Google changed how they treated the meta robots tags about a year ago. Our site was not exactly the way that Google wanted it. The moment we made a very small technical change, we saw an immediate improvement. And there's a great example where if you were just a regular site, probably wouldn't notice it. Maybe you go down 10, 15%, and it was just like, oh, I guess I didn't benefit from this algorithm. And the normal Google apologists will be like, make your site better, write better content. Had nothing to do with any of that stuff. It was just something that somebody made more important in the algorithm. And I'm not even sure Google knew they did it.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand that concept, that the traffic from search rankings is not linear. So it has an uncharacteristic curve. So it's, after about, rank 3, 4, or 5 for most keywords, you're like getting close to zero traffic from there and beyond. So like a 5 or 10% site-wide loss in rankings has much more than a 5 or 10% loss in traffic. And so at an enterprise level, if you lost 5% of your rankings, that might kill you if you were on the borderline with your average rank position. That might go from having, good traffic that pays the bills to, oh shit, we're not going to make payroll. And yeah, so it's deceptively hazardous when you have large numbers of pages that are being affected site-wide. Well, I will stop the share and let you share. And shout out to Magic PR for being our sponsor.
Here we go.
All right. So fun with SEO field data. This is about Google updates. So first thing I want to do, I want to give a shout out to Carolyn Holdeman. Honestly, really from her crawl or no crawl and her index detector work, I learned a lot from that, and from the knowledge that she had out there. I was able to really make my inspection of Google and monitoring Google much more pointed and helpful. So August 2023, there was a core update. Google made their announcement and said, hey, there's a core update. Well, that obviously doesn't help us much. A lot of folks say, hey, look at your log files. You see, especially a lot of the log file providers will run around and say, you need to see your log files. You need to see your log files. So let's look at log files. Here's log files, and I'm pulling in Google, and I have to put specific filters because there's a lot of people who like to pretend they're Google. That's a different deck. We'll talk about that someday. But looking at this, we can see honestly, it's not that helpful. Like this doesn't really help a site unless you're getting really, really hurt or really, really helped by an update. Just seeing log data isn't that helpful. So that's where when I listening to Carolyn regularly, she started talking about different bots. Google specifically says, hey, these are the bots that are coming in. This is our smartphone user agent string. This is our desktop user agent string. They even have they rarely use this string, which I do see, not rarely, but regularly on one of our sites. So that's a whole nother mystery. So once I knew about this, and Carolyn talked about the different Chrome builds, I said, well, geez, that's interesting. Let me start looking at these Chrome builds. And so I did a quick search and I noticed, hey, look at this. When the update happened, there was a Chrome 114, but now there's a Chrome 116. So there's a new major build out there. And so now knowing that there's an actual build number associated with these updates, I can then look at my logs and say, okay, Chrome 116 started, it hit our site in force at 4 p.m. on August 22nd. So now I know, and this is what's really important when it comes to enterprise, you'll see things just suddenly take off or drop sometimes. And I'm never 100% sure, is it something we did? Did we break something? Did Google change something? And if we see something move at 4 p.m. on August 22nd, I know most likely it was from a Chrome build, Google update. However, I say that we actually had something break on the day within a couple hours of a new Googlebot update. One of my techs came to me and said, oh, we're not having a problem. And he showed me the data. I'm like, what do you know? It's within an hour of a Chrome build, of a new Chrome build coming out. And we kind of wrote it off for a couple hours. And then we looked at it again and said, oops, nope, we did just happen to break something at the same time that Google was running an update. So in general, you can better associate these things, but not always.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing about the Chrome build to me is from the software engineering side of things. So there are types of updates where Google is going to deploy a new Chrome version for Googlebot. And Google has already come out and said that Googlebot is a forked version of the Chrome source code. And the Chromium source code is open source. Like you can go and get the source code for Chrome and look through it and see how it all works and what it does. They have a private copy that they modify outside of the purview of the public. So the Googlebot fork of Chrome is hidden, and anything that Google wants to do at crawl time or at render time would have to be in that Chrome code. So for example, 2 years ago, Google was capturing the rendered DOM HTML at 20 seconds after document ready. That would have had to have been in the Googlebot Chrome code. Now, today, when we measure it, they're capturing what the HTML is at 4 seconds after document ready. So if you're using JavaScript frameworks out there in the world, talking to all the enterprise companies, because they're the ones doing that, it had better be the best A-game performing JavaScript framework stuff, or the content that's being queried by those frameworks is invisible to Google. And all of that behavior, those types of updates, those will be in these Chrome builds. So when Google gives a new Chrome build for Googlebot, they put something new at crawl time or render time into the equation. Now, it could be the general reason they probably do this is security patches. We found new 0 days and we want to make Googlebot more secure. And so they make sure that everything's patched and fixed up, and they fix bugs and they do all of that. But they can also introduce crawl time and render time features for indexing and crawling. And who knows what's in there? Who knows if they gather data for their protocol buffers, which is what Google said is akin to the permanent record for a URL. Because Google doesn't want to deal with your HTML, that's too messy. So they convert your HTML into the protocol buffer that has all of the information they actually want to work with in a convenient form. And it's kind of like your permanent record. Here's the history of your title. Here's the history of your headings. Here's your term frequency arrays. Who knows what's in there. They did list a few things in the Off the Record podcast, but all of this could play into that part.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out as well is even though Chrome took over here at this specific time, you'll notice that it hit our site for days in advance. So it wasn't just an on or off switch. I don't know if this is Google testing. Is it some kind of training process for the bot or the algorithm? I don't know, but I do notice that typically happens for several days in advance. I'll see it hit ever so slightly, and actually sometimes it's hard to even spot. So after an update goes out, you'll invariably within a couple of days, you'll read articles, and I'm not calling out search engine roundtable. Well, I guess I am, but you'll see the invariable article saying, oh, there's some kind of volatility, there's some kind of tremors, there's something going on. Well, we don't have to wonder anymore. I just jump into my log files and I can say, oh, look at this. There's a new minor patch associated with this build. So it's 116 is still here, but now there's this 110. So I'll go back just two items. And you can see that was 116 with a minor patch in 96. And then we went to 110. So that could be, so Google, when Google needs to do something different, and it could be nothing to do with the algorithm, it could just be a security patch, but we'll see, kind of out with the old and then in with the new. So we went from 196 to 110 over to 179. And so now I can really see details like, all right, people are talking about rumblings in the search engine, what's going on. I can exactly see what's going on. I can say, all right, there's minor builds, and Google does a lot of these minor builds. I know Gary at PubCon, I think it was, mentioned Googlebot's stupid, it doesn't do anything, but obviously it must need to pull in certain data points for the algorithm. So while this Googlebot might not be doing anything, it does need to pull in very specific data points for the algorithm to do its processing, like Ted was talking about. So this was interesting. In between the 110 and 179, there was a 140. It came and then it kind of went away. And so I was like, hey, the plot thickens. Was this a failed version? Was it a test? Obviously, Google's not telling anybody anything, but I see this not amazingly unusual, but I do see this occasionally. There'll be something will show up for a couple days and then disappear. You can typically see when they're testing or some kind of failed version because there is no clear stop or start date from the previous version or the next version.
It could be a DevOps scenario like continuous integration, where when a feature is ready to ship, it gets automatically built and starts getting deployed out to the grid of Googlebots. And so you might be seeing the effects of continuous integration as some feature was ready to go, so it deployed or started deploying to the grid.
What I found interesting recently, and you'll notice here, this was on a Friday. Now, I think Ted, you'll definitely like this, or anybody really will like this. Who deploys code on Friday? I see that happen regularly with Google, where new bots come out on Fridays and Saturdays, which to me sounds crazy that they're doing that on a weekend, but
well,
I guess they can.
It's interesting because historically we would tend to see the big updates happen on Monday or Tuesday in the morning Pacific time. And so if they shifted to Fridays, that's a new DevOps behavior. And that warrants probably some consideration about how they think.
Well, with maps, they make updates on the weekend, so it could be something related.
Yeah. Maybe it has to do with, maybe there's some sort of lawful compliance, and so they need, non-peak time for maps, or but typically on the big core updates on web search, in the past, I haven't been looking this year, but in past years, it was very common for Monday, Tuesday morning Pacific.
remember years ago, Google even put out a little PR video showing everybody on their Monday meeting talking about, they're all talking together before they did their release. And they pretty much said, oh, we meet on Monday, we release Monday night or Tuesday. That clearly doesn't seem to be the case anymore. They must have changed some processes for sure.
Yeah, and there was a time where I was predicting core updates because we could kind of see some of the DevOps processing behavior. And then that all changed. Like it became a completely different process and we had to throw away that system. And that was what, a year and a half ago? Is that about right, Lee?
Yeah, that's about right.
So that was the the August update. Then on the heels of the August update, we had the helpful content come out, and that was supposed to be on September 14th. So I look at my log files and I can see that Google's telling the truth. On September 14th, Thursday, September 14th, the Chrome 116 stopped crawling our site. And then I saw that the Chrome 117 took over. So in my mind, that means, okay, this was the helpful content update. This is when the helpful content starts hitting us. It got interesting with this one because after they applied it, I started watching it. I noticed they started messing around with the Chrome build. So what was it, around 12 o'clock on Thursday, 12 noon on Thursday Eastern time is when the new Chrome build hit us. It was minor patch 62, but you can see that really only went until Monday at around 12 o'clock. And then we had a new minor build kick in that went from 62 to 88. Fun fact, and this happened after I put this deck together, they reverted back to 62 after a couple of days. And then they jumped from 62 to 132. So something must have been wrong with 88.
Yeah, and what you effectively have here in your log data is the ability to detect, certain types of Google updates. I mean, you could just monitor for change in the Googlebot Chrome version, and something's different.
Yes, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah. It's interesting looking at, okay, so we threw out 116 and we ran it for the period of the core update. And then we said, all right, that's done. Let's put out 117 and run it for, helpful content. It makes me wonder if the bots that are deployed are, written and pulling different data. In other words, there's something completely different that 117 is looking for that 116 wasn't. And so, how are they evaluating, updates on our pages going forward? Or, is there another set of bots or another set of processes? Or are these bots pulling in some of the base data from the sites and then the additional data that they need for, core updates or helpful content updates or spam updates or whatever? Just an interesting, as I'm looking at this, thinking about that.
I have a couple theories. I wonder if, number one, like I said earlier, are these bots looking for specific data points or doing certain processing, or maybe something's changing on the algo side, on the back end, and they have to change the bot to be able to communicate with that properly. I don't know.
Go ahead, Ted.
I tend to think about like Google's zoning updates. So 1 month, Google might allow keywords and style tags, and another month they might say, nope, we're not going to index keywords and style tags. And so there's probably something at crawl time where whatever zones of a page are excluded, they probably get taken out before the source gets put into the queue to be processed. So if they decide, we want to include this new tag or we want to exclude this tag, they would have to then update this version, roll it out, and they would have to do what's known as a recrawl of everything in order to get that process change to happen. So there might be certain types of updates where it requires a new Chrome update, and it would change at runtime how Google processes your page. And it could, in fact, require a recrawl of all things. We don't see that every update, but there have been updates where we're like, wow, it's recrawling everything. And historically, when we would see that, we would see the when Google shows the estimated number of search results on the different data centers for different browser versions, that would get out of sync, and we'd see the estimated search results go down to 0 for a time. There are no search results for this keyword. And then like a day or two later, yep, we're back to 4 billion estimated search results. And so you kind of see that happening, and it'll roll through. It won't hit all keywords at the same time. It kind of rolls through the system. But yeah, we see behaviors like that where it's like Google processes differently as a result of the update.
So Charles, let me ask you this. When you're looking, so we just had 114 and then it skipped 115 and jumped into 116 and then 117. Do you see that the different bots, if you went back and just looked at 114 versus 116 versus 117, that they're pulling different assets? Or are they, doing, the same sort of things? Because that might tell us. Go ahead.
Really good question. I've never really compared that, so I don't know. On the surface, I said, oh no, I wanted to say, oh no, they're doing the same thing, but then I realized I've never really looked at it, so I don't know for sure that they're pulling the same kinds of assets. I'm going to look at that though. That's a really good one.
Yeah, it is fascinating to see that, because like, okay, so because I'm sitting here processing and going, all right, what's the need for such a frequent update in the Chrome builds? And I understand there's different features and things like that coming out, but I'm like, okay, so these crawlers, are they crawling different things? And, even Ted, when you were talking about the keywords in a style tag, I'm like, well, maybe it's just when they went from 116 to 117, for example, that code wasn't there to even look in that zone. It's not that they turned it off, they're just not looking. And these are things that we, it would be really, really hard to know, but at least if we knew, this particular, crawler was going heavy into images, or this one was going heavy into, these particular areas more so than the previous ones, it might give us a little look as to, what's functionally different about a core update versus a spam update versus just, regular crawl time.
So I can tell you one thing that popped up just in the last 24 hours. I was looking at one of our sites and I noticed that the Google mobile bot was getting errors on the page, was returning 404 errors for embed. So this one site has a lot of like Instagram embeds on it and things like that. But occasionally people will take down their posts. So you get that standard little, this post is taken down message, but it returns a 404 to the mobile bot. The desktop bot does not return a 404 for those embeds. So to your point, Lee, I think you're right. I think the bots are pulling different assets. The desktop bot seems to ignore the embeds, whereas the mobile bot is not only looking at the embed, but it's then noticing whether it's getting a 404 on the target, on the target or not.
Right. And we've also noticed, on separate sites that I have, occasionally when you look at the log files, the Googlebot's looking for different things, like it's looking for an ads.txt file, which, I don't have ads on, some of the sites, yes, some no. So it's not there, but it's throwing a 404, that I can see because it's looking for something that I don't have. And I'm like, okay, so why is Google putting out a bot that's looking for something that I haven't told them about? They're initiating that sort of, behavior. And we've seen some of those particular behaviors where they were looking for product feeds and things like that, which, a content site might not have. So it's just been intriguing to see, bots looking for different assets. And I think it might be insightful potentially to see if there's any difference.
Yeah, I got some homework for myself now, because that's a really, really good point. And like I said, based on what I've seen recently, they're probably right.
Yeah.
Cool. So a few of the takeaways I had, number one, listen to Carolyn. If anyone's out listening is not listening to Carolyn Holzman, I recommend at the very least listen to a crawl or no crawl. I just recently did a friendly training recently, and I found that very, very helpful. Obviously, collect and monitor your server logs, specifically Googlebot, but you got to look for the Googlebot build. A lot of tools, most tools out there just tell you Googlebot. Googlebot is not Googlebot. It's not all the same. We now know there are different minor and major builds. And once you start seeing this data, now you can better attribute traffic jumps or drops. Did you fix something? Did you break something? Or did Google change the rules? Are they looking at something differently than they looked at before?
Yeah, and you could probably script alerts that would process your logs and look for the average occurring Googlebot version, or most commonly occurring Googlebot version. And then if that changes, you send out an alert. Hey, this might be an indicator that change is coming. It'd be interesting to maybe do some charts over time on those versions. How long do they live? How fast do they change? Are they intermixed, past and previous for a time? What does that look like?
I do
How
see
often do
that.
they roll back? Yeah, that's another one. Is how often
Well,
do they
and
go back to the previous version?
if it's continuous integration, they might roll back by making the version number go forward. So what we need is a confession out of Google saying they did a rollback, so that we can look at the data to see if the number went up or down. Because if they did a rollback and the number went up, then it's continuous integration and the number can only go up. But yeah, we'd have to figure out what they're doing, and they would have to tell us some information for us to know.
Yeah, but we don't get a chance to talk to Google, so.
Well, they sometimes announce things, they sometimes say, oh, we made a mistake, we're rolling it back. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, we need to rush to the logs and look at what the version numbers did.
Yeah, that cross summary report that I showed in a few slides, that's actually, Google's been filling it out occasionally now. And it's nice to see that Google's actually trying to communicate and create some kind of logs. But I've only seen a rollback once and in the several months I've been doing this. So it may be more common, I don't know. I will say I've noticed that we're on Chrome 118 already with the new October build. That came out on Saturday, 4 a.m. in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning is when it hit us. But I still see 117 floating around out there, and both minor patches for 117 are still floating around out there. So it's very interesting.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing all this.
Yeah, that is really cool. I'm sitting there thinking, Charles, I might have, my devs pull together a little tool that just kind of shows, the Chrome builds over time. And so you can just, go to a dashboard and say, oops, something's changed. That might be a cool little tool to have developed for your own internal use to see what's going on.
You can also, and Ted, I think you'll really like this, is you can see who's spoofing Google as well, because they don't use the right Chrome build numbers. So for example, as opposed to 117.0.5938.63, they'll have 117.0.0.0.
Yeah.
And that's how you spot the people that are doing something. It's not Google. And then you can start figuring out, is this person saying they're Google, or is it just someone with a screaming frog pretending they're Google, or what's going on?
That's typically what it is. It's just some bot that's trying to measure something or scrape something. But yeah, that's an interesting topic for another time. It kind of leads its way into stealth SEO, where there's this fundamental mindset about SEO, and there are basically these two fundamental mindsets. One of which is my website is going to trust everyone. So I show my SEO to anybody that comes to the website. Look at my SEO, look at my SEO, look at my SEO. And then the other mindset, the one that I'm coming to like, is it's only on a need to know basis. So if you don't need to know, no SEO. So if it's Ahrefs, no SEO. If it's SEMrush, no SEO. If it's other user agents like that, no SEO. In general, trust no one and verify the people you show it to. And in that mindset, that's how you get into stealth SEO, which isn't quite cloaking. It's really in the gray, but it's on the notion of being very honest and very transparent to Google, very honest with your traffic. But my SEO isn't for everyone to consume. So my competitors don't need to be stealing my every move, and we don't need to be in an arms race like the keyword games, where it escalates to thousands of exact matches on pages that have
Right.
no text.
Right.
And so, it gets all of this stuff eventually starts heading down that direction. Well, how do we behave? How do we react to Googlebot? What do we show Googlebot? How do we stop these fakers who are pretending to be Googlebot, who are just simply trying to steal from us, whether it's our tuning standards or our content? And that's what these tools do. Like, even my own software, it's all about seeing other people's tuning standards. And that's free, easy learning if you know how to use the tools. And so that shouldn't necessarily be what you trust everyone with. Here's my SEO. Here's my SEO. It works great. Check it out.
I've got a future deck I'll share with you guys that, so yeah, you can't trust the tools. You can't even always trust Google. Just in the last couple of days, I was getting the Google love letters saying, oh, this is wrong on your site. This is wrong on your site. I can't find it wrong. And when I look at the server logs, I don't see Google ever getting an error. So why does it think there's an error? Is there a delay? Is there something at a higher level that's not getting captured by logs?
I've had websites where Search Console swore there were certain errors, and I would show people, I'd be like, this error just does not exist. It would be I would eliminate everything off of the page. The error couldn't possibly exist. Google's like, that error's still there. And it kind of gets stuck. Search Console is buggy and quirky, and it ended up being something unrelated. So when I fixed the unrelated problem, then the problem it was stating finally cleared out and went away, but it didn't tell me about the unrelated one. It told me about the problem I didn't have. And Search Console is a mess. So the other thing I've seen recently is people going in and comparing keyword to keyword based on Search Console data, saying, I think I've lost a bunch of click-through rate on this keyword relative to this other keyword in Search Console. And people are treating it like it's Google Analytics or better, and it's not. It's like very sampled, tons of missing data. You cannot compare which keyword is better in Search Console data. That is a terrible mistake.
Yeah, the click data has always been horrible coming out of Search Console relative to analytics or any other tracking that you have. It's unusable largely.
Yeah. I mean, you maybe can for things with the highest view rates on your website, but anything out of the top few percentile is going to be have a high margin of error. Don't trust Search Console data. It's good for if you're looking for ideas, if you're looking for problems, diagnostically, that's great. But for picking which keyword your business needs to target, don't do that. All right, let's see. Let's look at some questions here. How would you optimize a website looking to promote their services to people from other countries who are looking for services they offer? Well, that sounds like an Hreflang thing if you're talking about multiple language support. And I was recently talking with someone who is trying to game this by doing all of the Hreflangs for different English-speaking countries, and that kind of blew up in their face. So if you aren't offering and supporting different languages, I would probably skip trying to manipulate Hreflang. So don't put up copies of your pages for English Canada, English Great Britain, English US, English Australia, because largely those are going to be duplicates, right? So you're going to create cannibalization and duplicate content issues. But when you translate it, it becomes different strings. It's different text. So the same article in French can rank side by side with the same article in English. You know, Google's not good at figuring that out. So different languages, good. Same language, probably not worth the trouble. What do you think, Charles?
Well, I know you can hurt yourself with hreflangs. They're treated as kind of like a super canonical to Google. I was working at a company called Verizon, and they had their hreflang. Someone in dev decided we're gonna set up an hreflang, but all they did is they pointed to their English version. This dev, like most devs I've met seem to do, excluded the dub. And that caused all kinds of problems. Once we actually removed the hreflang, problem went away, and we were cannibalizing ourselves. So doing hreflang for all English, for example, all the same language, I would say is fraught with danger, like you said, Ted. Years ago, this is over a decade ago, I worked for an e-commerce site. We tried it. We had English Canada, English UK, English US. It just never really worked right. I read every doc, every blog post there was about hreflang. We had our posts perfect. Google just didn't seem to like it. I would do it for different languages, but I wouldn't do it for English or multiple versions of the same language.
Any thoughts, Lee?
You know, I've heard of people doing one is, you know, different TLDs for the different countries, because that seems to, you know, hold some weight in the algorithm. So, you know, your Canadian version will rank on your .ca website and so forth and so on. That gets away from sort of the cannibalization.
And I love that. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So that has so many benefits. It's amazing. So let's say you're breaking your website up from supporting 10 languages on one domain to 10 domains supporting 10 languages. Now you have this cross-linking, even through Hreflang, for all the different versions. So now you got every page on your website has 10 referring domains. You have 10 times the crawl budget. You have 10 home pages, and we know that home pages are powerful. I love that. Like, give that thought.
And I know that other people have argued that you can do similar things with subdomains on your own site, like canada.seotoolab.com, you know, france.seo, and then, you know, do those things there because subdomains are treated a little bit differently. But
I don't like subdomains.
Back and forth, yeah.
So subdomains rarely work. They kind of need to be whitelisted on Google's end to be allowed to be different websites, and they often don't award that. I had a PageRank 8 that couldn't get that subdomain treatment. So even if you're a big, huge, successful enterprise, you may not even get the behavior you want out of subdomains. Different domains, it just works. It's like $2 and it just works. Come on, how good is that?
Yeah.
All right.
And it's not exactly expensive to get a brand new domain either. You know, it's So
yeah, I have crazy thoughts on this concept. If you take this idea to extremes, man, the theoretical power involved in there just goes nuts. I mean, it's run the thought experiment. You know, there's a joke we say, I probably shouldn't say it because I think it's one of the most powerful exploits ever in SEO, but I just kind of have to say it because it's the coolest thought experiment ever. Mm-hmm. What if all pages were home pages? All right, I'll let you guys think about that. It's a crazy notion, and it's totally doable.
And if you're going to SEO Rockstars next week and you grab Ted at the bar and buy him a beer, he will go and spill all of that all out. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's game breaking. There are game breaking edge cases in SEO, but you have to think about how all these things connect and how they all interact and what it would take to manage it, what it would take to deploy it. But when you explore some of the extremes on some of these weird concepts in the Google ecosystem, yeah, there are spots where it gets interesting fast.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Charles, if you've only seen a rollback once, could you query your Googlebot data for when the rollback happened to see what happened with the Chrome patch number? And I think that's what he was saying is he saw a rollback where the number went backwards, right?
Yeah, the minor patch was 62, and then they rolled out 88. And I think it was like 2 or 3 days later, they rolled back to 62. They never went to 88. I think they jumped to like 110 or 132 or something like that. So, and that was like a week later. They sat at, it was 88 for like 3 or 4 days, then it was 62 or something like that for a couple days. Then it went back, I'm sorry, 62, 88, then it went back to 62 for like 4 or 5 days, and then it jumped up to something else.
Yeah, and that, there's a couple things that can happen there. Like you could put in a feature, do a build and deploy it, and that increments the number forward. Then you could edit the code to comment out the feature or change the feature and deploy it again, and that would increment. And that could be, a rollback of that feature, even though the number incremented. Then there's the possibility that they go to their source control and go, this was a total mistake. We're reverting back to the source code on this date, which would probably roll back the version number to that date, and that would take it backwards, and then they'd redeploy. But it's hard to know what actually happens because we're not at Google. So we're just kind of looking at the version number and trying to divine the facts on their end. And that's a lot harder to do.
And when I say I've only seen it once, I just, to put in context, I started getting into this in about July. So, this is a massive data set of 3 months. So they could do this regularly for all I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Paul also said, this is a fantastic presentation. It has given me so much nuggets to test myself. And yeah, go look at your logs, people. There's a wealth of data in there. You can see on e-commerce websites, you can see oftentimes if the e-commerce site has problems, you can see Googlebot sorting categories by price descending or adding products to the shopping cart, then removing products from the shopping cart. All the things that Googlebot shouldn't be getting into will be in the web logs. So if you look at what Googlebot's getting into, you can identify problems in your website architecture. And one of the main things is when you go to Search Console and you see that your number of index pages is irrational to the amount of products and categories you have, then you probably have an infinite crawl where Google is getting into things it shouldn't. And so that's one of the main things. If you have another issue where Google is never picking up your new products, that's because they're probably spending infinite time in your socks category, running out of crawl budget and saying, see you next month. And so that's why it's so hard to get that new content indexed if you have an infinite crawl. So yeah, look at your web logs, because all these things can be diagnosed in like 10 minutes if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I just pinged Carolyn, told her, because I know she does a lot with logs, and when a lot of people get into logs, she has a lot of conversations back and forth with people that do log file analysis or interested in log file analysis. I told her she needs a Log Explorer Skype group. So we'll see if that launches. We'll let you know here on Fight Club.
Yeah, so Tyler asks, your stealth comment, do you disallow robots.txt for SEMrush, Ahrefs, and stick to Google Search Console? There's multiple pieces in it, but the idea of my implementation, and there's many ways to do this. Like, I didn't invent this, I just have my own take on it. So my own take on it, I don't want to trust anyone. I assume everyone who visits my website is not included in the need to know category. And so I need to verify that you are in fact who you are and that you do in fact need to know. And as a part of that, I make sure that my website content and the keywords I tune for are very honest with what the searchers want. So if I am ranking for a games keyword, my traffic wants games and I'm delivering games content that they like. You have to be super honest on that. Otherwise, you're cloaking, right? The second you mislead a searcher, you've done the thing Google hates most. So you got to be super white hat on your honesty and transparency. And the second rule of stealth SEO is you never lie to Google. You show Google all your cards. You show them everything you're doing. Here it all is, totally honest and transparent. And that's the only way you stand a single shred of possibility of maybe surviving a manual review. And even then, it's not guaranteed. Google may decide they just hate that anyway, just because. So, it's never been tested in that regard, but stealth SEO has been running in the wild for years and it works fine. Don't know how Google's going to respond to it. The reason it exists is to stop the arms race. So not all pages need it, but if you're in a case where you have escalating on-page tuning where everybody's monitoring and copying each other, how do you stop the arms race? How do you get it so you don't have to put 3,000 words exact matches on a page? You don't let people see your moves you're making. And if you stop telegraphing all of your SEO, then people stop escalating on it and you end the arms race. So this benefits high competition keywords where you're investing a lot in your SEO tuning and people are just stealing it. So that's the use case. Not all pages need it. It's only these pages.
Because I know Charles has a hard stop. Are there other questions down there that are for him specifically?
I'm reading my Chromium log changes now, some really interesting things. That's Eric Lanchiers, and he's really into this type of stuff. So that's a big compliment that he's investigating what you've shown. All right, thank you. I wasn't even thinking of using Hreflang, but thanks for the heads up. Yeah, there's more than one way to rank a page. TDRs over Hreflang all day, agreed. I've seen huge jumps on keywords on the first page jump to position 1 within a week using the Cora roadmap. Hey, right on. Awesome. What are the results I should expect using a press release? Results will vary, depends how much you need, depends how you tune the press release. You can schedule a call with me from my contact page. There's a schedule link and we can talk about it. I wouldn't want to out your project on the air. Let's see, Eric says where Google changes something in Chromium with regards to user accounts and CTR. Where Google changes something in Chromium with regards to user accounts and CTR. I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
Is that a continuation of his previous comment?
Let me take a look. So I'm reading the Chromium log changes now, some really interesting things where Google changes something in Chromium with regards to user accounts and CTR. Yeah, it reads through like a continuation. I'm not sure how to respond to that because I don't fully understand. I do agree that kind of stuff could be in there. So
I'm going to throw this out there real quick because I pinged Carolyn and she jumped on here. She did form a Log Explorers Skype group. So Carolyn,
yeah.
Charles has been talking about things he's found in the logs, and he said, a couple of nice things about you. I disputed it, but here we are where we are. And he's shown a lot of things. And we talked about all the stuff that you do with log file analysis. So I thought it would be cool if you had that particular group for people that are interested in sharing log file data or getting to know it. So thanks for doing that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. And we have Eric here. Eric, did you want to clarify?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you can hear me.
Yep.
Oh, wow. All right, cool. Yeah. I discovered something just now in the logs, in the Google logs, and let me paste this in chat, or I'm going to try to paste it in chat so people can see what I'm looking at. And essentially it's an entry log, and it could be slightly unrelated, but it's right before the helpful content update. And it's an entry log that says they're updating their click-through rate, checking for to better calculate user metrics or metrics. So that just kind of gives me a hint, at least from this log that I'm going to try to paste into chat. I'm doing everything off the cuff here, that the helpful content update might have had something to do with metrics and click-through rate. So this is just something I've just found as we were talking about logs and all that. I started going through all the logs of the Chromium builds to see, hey, is there anything interesting that we could find in here right before the helpful update release? So I in the chat, I just pasted a link. Maybe whoever is presenting could open it up, and it's just a screenshot of the log where essentially it's a commit that just says add missing metrics for sign-in of 0 user accounts, and this will allow, there we go. So this will allow us to compute the click-through rate for click-through rates for missing case. And I'm like, okay, that's by someone from Google on September 12th, which is right before the release of the Chromium that was active for the helpful update on September 14th. So I'm just kind of like, this doesn't on its own tell me anything. It doesn't tell us what exactly they're tracking, but it, in my opinion, at least gives us maybe a hint as to something that they're looking into for the helpful content update.
Yeah, it could be. So is this a check-in message for the open source fork?
Yeah, exactly. This is a change log for the Chromiums that I located online.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I would guess that anything super secret about Google's, ranking and indexing would probably only be in their private Google fork. But in defense of this theory, we also know that Google is measuring and using CTR because we see the ranking system respond to CTR and when it's done properly, and it's very hard to do it properly. So I don't recommend beginners experiment with CTR at all. It usually backfires.
Yeah, my take on this, I don't want to, sorry to kind of jump in, but my take on this is that there might be people at Google that are very well trained in the front-facing things of what to say, what not to say, what to show, what not to show. But when you're just filling out a log like this, like a commit, like note, you might, as an engineer is just working on this day in, day out, mention, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. We're just, it's weird that they're saying this will allow us to compute CTRs, which I'm assuming is click-through rates for missing case. So that it's just this type of language that I wouldn't expect to see in something just like a Chromium dev build or so.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
I also wonder, because like what Ted was saying, that you have to be very careful with it so that if you have a fake email that you're trying to make it look like it's all over the United States, leaving reviews and things like that. I mean, I know that they're getting really, really persnickety about what they will allow for these Gmail accounts.
Yeah. And, it makes sense that, local guides would tend to only operate in small numbers of cities at a time. So when you have a local guide account that's global, that's probably unusual in the data, but who knows where Google sets the thresholds, and they have so many users, those thresholds could be anywhere.
True.
Get another person trying to join. So yeah, if you're trying to find Carolyn's content for crawling and indexing stuff, you want to just Google crawl or no crawl and look for the YouTube channel. If you're looking for more SEO content to consume, she also has Confessions of an SEO. Is that something that's going to continue for another season?
I think so.
Okay, because I know sometimes you put a call out,
Yeah, I had a rough time this summer, but I'm trying to get back on the regular with it. So.
Excellent. But yeah, the older episodes are still really cool, so you can go back and binge watch. The cool thing about Confessions of an SEO was they were all 15-minute episodes, so they're just really enjoyable and not much time commitment. And let's see, it's kind of down to the wire if people want to hang out with Ted, Lee, Clint, and others. There is SEO Rockstars in Boston this year. So we're all traveling out there next week. So if you want to come hang out and you need an extra business write-off this year, this is a great way to do it. I know that after Rockstars, I have 2 more events in early 2024. And then I'm probably going to stop doing speaking events until Q4. I'm going to take some time off and get back into some primary research in SEO. And I'm actually strategizing the systems I'm going to build for running new tests and learning new things and building new technologies. And so I'm actually really excited to get back into some core testing.
Wow.
And the main reason is, so I need new things to talk about. I can't keep giving the same presentation. So I need to go discover something new so I have something new to share. And so, yeah, I'm hoping, I know there's a group of people that want to join me in this testing endeavor. So I'm going to try and structure it. So people who are really into testing, who really do SEO testing, it's going to be a small group of us collaborating on things. So if you're in that bucket and you're not just talking about doing it, you're not just thinking about doing it, or boy, would I like to watch what Ted does. If you're actually a tester, let me know. But yeah, that'll be early 2024. So Lee, what do you have going on? You're taking the rest of the year off?
Well, I have the Rockstars next week, and then there is a virtual conference that I'm talking at in January. That information will be out there. Yeah, it's Lisa's conference, and then from that, I'm actually looking at non-SEO conferences next year to attend. Not so much in the speaking. I'm going to limit the speaking that I do this coming year. So, the January one will be an opportunity, and then I'll have to evaluate the rest of the year to see, where it aligns with my own interests as well. But real quick, I want to just share screen.
Oh yeah, let me
just so people have this. So that's Carolyn's Log Explorers group, so that people can join that particular group. If you can't find it, if you're interested in doing it, I think it's awesome. Carolyn loves talking about this stuff. She loves helping people out with this stuff. And I've often found that when you share data back and forth, you find really, really cool opportunities from time to time. So I just wanted to make sure that was in the show notes so I can bury Carolyn and people.
And Carolyn occasionally does a high value, low cost forensic SEO training. It happens once a year about, but you have to be in our circle to know when it's available. So
Yeah.
definitely at least watch our YouTube channel so you get those announcements.
Excellent.
All right. And thanks, Eric, for coming on to clarify. You have anything to announce?
No, I'm just running my helpful content experiments. If anyone hasn't seen the paper, yeah, I'm still running experiments. So I'll be updating the results. We have 8 to 10 experiments on the helpful content update running right now, and I expect to have the results within 3 to 5 days.
Can you tell people where to go to find that research?
Yeah, I mean, I'll drop a link if you want, but it was on my Twitter that I posted all over the place. It's on, hold up, let me just drop the link to the thing. You can actually just download the white paper. There's a video version and there's a full web version. And I'm not entirely, I don't know if you could share the link or so.
After the show, I'll add it to the description of the YouTube video.
Yeah, it's completely free. I spent 2 weeks working on it, testing. We're working on different websites, performing multiple different experiments on different websites that were affected. Some I control, some with other people. We spent over $4,000 developing custom software and processing data on the helpful content update. And it's all available for free, no catch, nothing to buy, no signups, no nothing. You could get everything. So it's not the full answers, but it is information to at least eliminate some of the tests that we've already done. So even if you don't get anything out of it, maybe we'll just save you some time because we've tested things. Or like, for instance, I'll give you a random test that we're performing right now. We developed custom software to be able to test user comments on a website. So one of the overarching trends, sorry, am I talking too much? You need to.
No, you're fine. Go.
No.
All right. So one of the things that we wanted to test for the helpful content update was user interactions on a website, because we saw a whole bunch of websites that were impacted that didn't have any interactions. It was just a page, you leave, you come, you go. So we noticed that websites with a whole bunch of comments, community activity, tend to do better overall. Not perfect, but better overall. So we were like, okay, what if we took a website with no comments and then just started in a huge amount of activity on the website? Would Google pick it up, or was that, is Google measuring user interactions, or are they just looking at comments and then saying, oh, because there's comments, there must be user interaction, therefore might be more helpful? So we developed custom software to basically create natural conversation. We've done over 2,048 comments naturally, day after day, replying to each other and so forth. That's one of the experiments that we're testing right now. I expect to have the results in a few days of that. And we have other experiments such as user quotes from authority figures that we've developed software for. And this is not stuff that we're selling. Like when I say software, this is just internal things for us to test, right?
Yeah, you're building the test.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, we have this idea. How do we test this on a large scale on this website? So my whole team has been basically developing tests internally and then deploying them. And we're just waiting on all the results. It's super exciting from an SEO perspective of like, hey, how is Google going to react to an extra 2,000 natural comments on a website? Are they going to think that it's helpful? Are they going to just ignore it? Like, is that going to impact the indexing? And then we have user quotes, and then we have, we're actually doing stuff with site names. Anyways, all of this stuff is currently underway, and I explain all the theories and thinking behind it. So if anyone is affected or is just curious, you could go get the report. And once again, like I want to emphasize, there's no catch here. There's like literally nothing to buy, no sales, no nothing, no.
Well, even if there was, I wouldn't care, because here's the thing about SEO testing. It's really hard, and it's really expensive, and it's really time consuming. And to my knowledge, there's only about 12 people that do it properly with scientific method. And so, Eric is one of those people, and he's peer reviewing this research. He's telling you what he's testing. He's telling you how he tested it. He's telling you the results he's gotten, and he's not even asking for anything in return. And he has a team of developers that are building out these tests. He's using his own time and research to it. Over the course of the year, this type of activity can cost, easily 5 figures, presumably into 6 figures. That's an expensive investment. You can get $100,000 of SEO research for free. All you have to do is lift a finger and care. And most SEOs won't even do that.
And also, in my experience, testers, if you reached out to Eric and said, "Hey, man, it's a great test. I see your result there, but I'm not sure that would hold up, on this type of site or e-commerce, something like that." He can sit there and say, "Well, we can work on testing that, or I can show you how to do it." Those sort of things. Testers like to talk about that stuff and make sure that people are utilizing it or trying to, lock arms to go figure out how to unravel some of these mysteries. So I'm sure that, feedback and, just questions are welcome in those environments.
Yeah. So even if you charged $50 for it, it's a hell of a deal, and you're giving it away for free.
Yeah. So if people want to access it, let me just, actually, I have an idea. Let me just share my screen and I will show you where it is. Let me do that in just a second. Let's do this. Share screen. And let's do that. Oh, I have so many tabs open. Ignore my other tabs of me stalking Google employees. There you go. Okay, cool. So I don't know if you're going to be able to make me share my screen if anyone can see it.
You're sharing.
Oh, I'm saying, oh, okay, go. There you go. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I was looking through the logs, and somewhere in here is where I found the stuff. But the Google helpful content update is available. You could go to on-page.ai/pages/helpful content update right here, and you could go see the helpful content update. Just everything is here. So you have all the research here. You have the training videos, and you could also have the full text. So here, if you want to have the video version of these tests and what we're testing here, is here. And if you just want to download the PDF, you could do so right here, and we have the full PDF. And what I'm updating right now is going to be kind of at the bottom where we have my theory. I'm going too quickly, but we have my theories of what I believe happened. And then right below, I believe, is where, there you go, the ongoing helpful content tests and experiments validating our theories. So essentially we have theories, and this is us just validating or just testing and trying to, honestly, we're trying to disprove what the theories. So we have a theory, we're like, okay, let's try to break it now and see what works, what doesn't. So we have things like bio.
This is scientific method. He has a hypothesis, he's drawing conclusions, he's telling you how the test led to the conclusions. You can repeat his work. And in testing, we tend to find 3 things. We either confirm something is true, we confirm something is false. Well, I guess there's 4 things. Or it's inconclusive, we couldn't really learn about a thing, or we find out something else along the way.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think this is also classic because you started off when you're scrolling down through there's 3 or 4 tests that we ran, some theories that we have, and your list of other tests based on your first tests is longer than so it just keeps expanding and forking out additional things you have to do, which is part of the process why it makes this so time consuming and so expensive ultimately in time and resources to get to the bottom of some of these things. So
oh yeah, for sure. It definitely very, very, very time consuming, and it's a group effort too. One of the coolest things that's happened is since I've shared this, I've actually had people reaching out with really, really interesting comparison sites. Like I have a person that reached out, and thank you to him. I'm still looking into it. He presented 2 websites that are almost identical. One got hit, one didn't, and they're same theme, same type of links, same type of so many things that are similar. And then it makes it, it's these cases where it's like, oh wow, I have this gem of this this gem of a find that allows me to have more insights into how the update is working and what it is looking for. So by sharing and with the community, we get to band together and just figure more stuff on Google. Even this show right here, we get to group up and not fight back against Google, but just get together and understand it a bit better.
We just want to know the truth of the matter.
There you go. Yeah.
And and I'll extend the invite. Whenever you have cool research you want to share with the public, you're welcome to come on the show and walk us through the research. It's always
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we love data.
Yep.
All right. Take